Welcome back to Let's Talk Careers. I'm so excited to bring another incredible guest. Today we are meeting with Chris Cain, who is the CEO of Umbrella Academy. Welcome, Chris. I'm so excited to have you with me.
Yeah, thank you, Maria. I'm so excited to be here too. Look forward to this.
Super, super exciting. You know, I can talk for ages and ages and ages. Anyone that's ever watched my interviews knows that about me. So we're just going to jump right into it, Chris. I love the journey of a career. I think that everyone's career journey has inspiring moments in it and also helps a young person not look at their career as a static one occupation experience, but more as a lifelong process. So before we get into what you're doing right now at Umbrella Academy, I thought we could take you back in time to when you were around 15, 16, that juicy time in a young person's life when everybody asks one question, and that is, what are you going to be and what are you going to do when you graduate? Can you remember being that younger Chris, which wasn't too long ago, I'm sure?
I can actually, and I'd probably like to go back a bit further because at that particular age, I had no clue what I wanted to be or do at that point, other than my educational background is such that I didn't go to school very often because I suffered with chronic asthma. And I went to a convalescent home for 2 years in the UK simply because I was literally going to school for a day and then perhaps having a week off. The educational authorities became very concerned, so they sent me to a convalescent home for 2 years. And to give you some idea of the problems in certain people's minds, but not mine, at the age of 11, I was 2 years behind in mathematics and 3 years behind in English, according to, and I found this for the interview today, according to this is my report from the convalescent home, how far behind I was. So, to be honest, at the age of 15, the school I was going to, I was not being prepared for any exams at all, really. And I could have left. I could have easily left the school with nothing, no qualifications at all. But I said to the school, I want to get some qualifications because I don't want to work in a factory because of my health. And so they allowed me to do something called a CSE, a Certificate in Secondary Education, which is below O levels. I did that, and badly. So I got one grade 1 in metalwork, a grade 2 in woodwork, and then lower grades for the other subjects. So I left that particular school and then went to do O levels at a college. Again, badly. I did 5 O levels and passed 2 out of the lowest possible grade. So I passed economics and English. So now, throughout the whole of my, sort of like secondary schooling, although we didn't have a sixth form, I then went on to do the O levels. I'd amassed 2 O levels and a CSE grade 1 in metalwork, and then came to that kind of brick wall. Well, what do I do now? And again, you asked about, things that change your life. And the one thing that changed my life was coming into contact with a man. Is it okay to name names on this? His name was Alf. I'll just call his first name. So his name was Alf, and he allowed me to enroll on an OND in business studies course. And there were 10 of us on the course. And to be honest, out of the 10, only one person had more than 4 O levels to be on the course. So 9 of us were really, really thankful to Alf for giving us this opportunity. So that was part of the turning point. But we had to do more O levels to stay on the course, which we did. So that enables us to go into year 2. But at the end of year 1, I came 9th out of 10. and my best mate came 10th. But yeah, I mean, I can remember vividly sitting in the library at that tender age you mentioned, saying to my friends, we're not going anywhere, we need to work harder, etc., etc. But then turning point number 2 came, which was a big, big turning point. I went home, put the TV on, and in my day, we had these big television with valves that took an hour to warm up. So, not like the kids of today, just switch it on and it's on, yeah? Anyway, so on the TV, there was a program headline, Use Your Head by Tony Bazan. And I thought, this sounds interesting, use your head, because I'm not obviously doing well at exams, so there's something missing. So I watched this program, and Tony Bazan's name, what I found, isn't well known, but he's the inventor of mind maps. And funny enough, he invented them because he was going backwards at university. He wasn't doing well at all. So he had to learn how to learn, if you like. So he created mind maps. So from this television program, I learned mind mapping, effective reading, speed reading, memory skills. And I went back to the college, year 2, really motivated that now I've got these techniques that I genuinely believe will change the results that I've been getting. My friends thought I'd come from another planet because it was different. You know, none of us had ever come across these techniques at school. And they thought, as I said, they thought I'd sort of like been taken away by Martians and been brought back. But at the end of the second year, I went from 9th to the best. Bang. And I got a distinction. I was made Student of the Year. And it was then that I realised what I wanted to be and do. Which was I wanted to be someone that helps others go from, being really bad from an academic point of view to them being really brilliant. And I want to help others to do that kind of thing. But then my plan became, I'll become an accountant first, was the plan, because the college that I went to do my OND had 3 departments, had management department, accounting department, business studies. And it was obvious the accountants earned more money as lecturers compared to the other 2 departments. So I thought, again, looking back wrongly, but I was advised, go and do a degree, then do accountancy, then go into teaching. So that then became sort of like the journey I was going to take. But what happened was, at that sort of like tender age, now sort of like 16, 17, I went to do an economics degree, passed the degree. There was 30 of us on the course. Nobody got a first class honour. Only 3 got a 2-1. I was one of the 3. And again, that was confirming to me these techniques really, really do work. I then got a job as a trainee management accountant. But then a job came up as a teacher. So I applied for that job and then went into teaching. Bizarrely, I ended up in an accounts department teaching accountants, which is why the vast majority of people believe that I'm an accountant.
What a journey, Chris. And listening to you retell that story, a couple of things really, they radiated from this story for me. One, you remembered a specific individual in the journey that helped you on that journey. And when I work with young people, one of the challenges that they express to me is nobody really believes in me and nobody really thinks that I can do it. You know, will I be able to kind of make the success that I would like for my life because my grades show me different. And I think this is a barrier that we see in education, in that relationship between advisors, teachers, and mentors, and young people and their aspirations. So much of it is dependent on the grade or the number in terms of what that young person can do. But as we look at who you are today and where you began in that story, completely different. If I were to put you in front of an audience of young people and describe you as the CEO of an organization, they would probably make assumptions about you in terms of your intelligence, in terms of your study path, in terms of where it all began. And most likely, they might even make the assumption that school must have been easy for you because look at the level of success. What do you say to a young person that might be struggling right now, might feel really alone on that journey because their grades and their teachers, maybe even their parents, are telling them unless they study more, unless their grades increase, they're going to struggle in their career? How do you respond to them? What would you tell them?
Okay. If I can pick up on the point you made about parents, what I would like to tell them if the parents are discouraging them. I think when I look back, as I say, this letter or this report that I was 2 years behind, etc. My mother received this, but she never told me. She never told me that I was behind. She always encouraged me. So that's important, I think, for the parents who listen to this, that they have to be very careful what they say to the child, because you can take a lot of motivation away. But my mum never did. My mum always encouraged me. But then because I'm still teaching, what I do with kids, I tell them about my background, and that, it's the techniques that you learn that quite often make the difference. But the techniques on their own need to be combined with positive beliefs. You need to, now, my understanding of beliefs and values is that they're not necessarily true, but that a belief will either empower you or it will disempower you. So if you got, parents who are saying, "Oh, you're not going to do well," that can disempower. Similarly, the school that I went to, some of the school teachers. I remember when I got my CSE mathematics, which was grade 3, which was again below O level. The maths teacher goes, "Oh, you did well," and I'm like thinking, "Well, I think you should have done better than that." And she came across a bit condescending in a sense, almost as if I did better than perhaps I should have done. But again, she wasn't giving me, sort of like the motivation that I really needed. But in many ways, my mother compensated for that. So I instill positive beliefs as much as I can into the younger people. Very important because they will empower you. And we all have, in my view, we all have a purpose in life, which links into the idea of who do you want to be. And I often in my classes ask those questions. What do you want to be? What do you want to do? What do you want to have? And think about it in a positive way. And quite often the people I meet have no idea what they want to be, or they have some idea perhaps that I want to be an accountant, but I say, look, that's more like doing something. What's your purpose? What's your passion? What do you really want to be in life? Because I feel as though I don't work for a living, because I feel I get paid for my hobby, because I tick the 3 boxes. I want to be someone that helps. I want to do it through training and development, and I want to earn a good living. And so my advice to young children or kids is that they have got the skills and ability. That's to me. There's never any question about a person's skills and ability, but it's more about them having the right kind of beliefs that they can get to really where they want to be and do what they really want to do. So it's the beliefs, really.
That really sounds like you're encouraging a mindset shift. It's really, that's what it sounds like to me, is that belief system, which is hard for a young person, I think, to really recognize, because their belief system is on such an unconscious level, and it's these constant messages. But I think at some point, and we see this in adults as well, at some point the belief almost masks itself as the truth, right? And so if I think it and everything around me reminds me of it, then it has to be true. Which then takes me to the 3 career tips that you have for teens. You say, as you just said, is like, choose that belief system carefully, because it's that main driver behind the behaviors that you embark on. But you also say there's no failure, only feedback, which is a hard one, I think, for young people, especially when they're constantly in a graded system where the feedback is either pass or fail, or what you need to do better. And I think sometimes, and at no fault to teachers, I have full respect for teachers, being a teacher myself, is that the feedback almost becomes all the things you did wrong and less about, hey, you know what, like the mind map skill that you learned, you know what, how can you use that learning and kind of transfer it in? So how do they identify feedback when they're so used to pass or fail and what they're doing wrong? How do they turn that into constructive?
Wow, that's a brilliant question. Thank you for asking that one. Because you're right, feedback normally, well, it is either you passed or failed. So I emphasize structure, approach, strategy. When I'm talking about there's no failure, only feedback, identify your approach. Identify what the approach should be. So when a lot of kids are sort of like preparing for exams, quite often what they'll do, they'll read the book time and time again, use a highlighter pen. Well, there's a lot more things that need to be done rather than just reading the material. They also need to do a lot of practice. But again, it's how they practice. Do they practice under exam conditions, or do they practice under non-exam conditions? I recommend both. One of the problems in today's world is, because of the technology, kids have stopped using pens and paper. And again, that could make a difference. So I always say, this is where you are now, this is where you want to be. If you don't get there, then it's your strategy that's wrong. It's not that you haven't got the skills or the ability, it's the strategy you put into practice for getting there hasn't worked. So you need to identify what that strategy is, not just the feedback, I need to work harder, or but what does that mean? How are you going to change what you did before? Because the other thing I link into is Einstein's definition of madness, doing the same thing time and time again, expecting a different result. Well, normally you ain't going to get it. You have to change something, and I think that's one of the things that you firmly believe in. Yeah, change things aren't going to change unless you change. Yeah.
In my view, change can only happen when you take action, right? Like, you've got to do things different.
Yeah.
So let's go back into your tips. You say that everything you learn in some context will be wrong. What does that mean?
Yeah. Okay, I have only, I haven't stopped learning myself. So I've picked this up from a lady whose name, well, she's a doctor, actually, Dr. Ellen Langer, who was the first female professor at Harvard University. And that's where I've got this saying from. Everything you've ever learned in some context is wrong. It's like and she quotes this, what's 1 + 1? Everybody goes 2. Well, it is 2 if we're using the base 10 number system. If we use a different numbering system, 1 + 1 is not 2. So 1 + 1 can be 1. And so she also uses the example of where her first eureka moment, she was at a horse event, and this man said to her, can you look after my horse while I go and buy a hot dog for it? So she's holding the horse, thinking to herself, horses don't eat meat. So he comes back with a hot dog, feeds the horse with the hot dog. Her brain goes boom. It's like, oh, so what does that exactly mean? Horses don't eat meat, etc., etc. And so through years and years and years of research, her research, this is over 40 years worth of research, she's now coming up with that kind of statement that in some context, everything you've ever learned can be wrong, can be wrong.
That
And
is, it's such a big one, isn't it? And I think it's
it
really
is.
empowering for young people, people of all ages, because you're right. I believe that context is so important, and also understanding what context a young person is preparing themselves for can change our perspective on their choices. But
Yeah.
Chris, as we're coming to the end, because I know we need to kind of bring it to a wrap, as we're coming to an end, tell us a little bit more about Umbrella Academy. I think it's an incredible new initiative. I love the purpose behind it, but share it with our audience today.
Okay, so as a result of all of these techniques I've learned over the years and the belief systems, as you mentioned, we got together and decided to set up the umbrella. As we know, umbrellas protect. They are there to encourage as well people. So what we decided is we wanted a training institute, if you like, that would really get kids to focus on for people talk about pathways, but before you get onto a pathway, I tend to think of roads. There are four main roads. One road is I'm an entrepreneur, and self-employed, being an entrepreneur is one road. Another road is just a job. I want a job. Another road is going to university, but another road is a professional qualification. So we wanted to set something up that encourages people that have been written off, as well as the high flyers, to think about the road they're on. And it's never too late to change the road you're on, as Led Zeppelin would say. And then be prepared to learn new things like the mind mapping and the techniques, which will completely and utterly change the way you view things, the way you see things. And again, we talked about this no failure, only feedback. Another good example is like a CV. I've met so many people that do one CV, they send it out to hundreds of organisations, and they never get a reply, and they never think that it's necessarily something wrong with the CV itself. So my advice is always do one CV, try it first, and if it doesn't open the door for you, then analyse it and see what's wrong with it, and then change it. So I have a particular view of doing CVs as well. So we like setting up an institute where the kids will be definitely introduced to different ways of learning and easier ways of learning, easier ways of studying, but also working with them to decide which path do you really want to take, or what's the best path for you. So that's the idea behind the umbrella. And also the other idea behind it is working with others under the canopy, if you like, under the umbrella. So we're more than happy to work with other institutes, schools, etc., etc. Again, if they've got kids who have been fallen off the academic radar, we genuinely believe we can get them back on track with the techniques. So that's the whole idea behind this concept.
That sounds amazing. Chris, who would you say are the young people that you want to be attracting to the Academy?
It's a very good question again. Because of my background, obviously I have a bit of a soft spot for people who aren't doing as well as they can. And therefore, if we think about people grade 10, somebody grade 10 who isn't, has done badly, we're more than happy to take those. People who grade equally grade 11 or 12, we have a very, very good, what we call a foundation program, that again can put them on any of those four paths, either into employment, either into university. There are many, many, many universities that accept the foundation program we're offering, or straight into a professional qualification. But the one thing that I didn't mention is I first came to Dubai into the PwC Academy as a director there, and I'm still an adjunct trainer. I'm an approved trainer with the PwC Academy, and there are many, many students that we've taken straight from school into doing ACCA, professional accountancy, for example, without going to university. So university isn't for everyone, and there are other roads that they can take, and we want to make people aware of these things.
Chris, it's been amazing talking with you. I could go on and on and on. Your journey is absolutely incredible. I just loved how you began by sharing the story of being a younger student who academically was kind of falling behind. And it was by, it wasn't by choice. It was your health that made that situation happen. And we see that with young people. Many times it's not something in their control. It's something that kind of happens to them, and they fall off the academic platform and get left behind. I really appreciated that you shared that story. Now, taking us right to where you are right now as the CEO, if you were going to look back at that younger Chris, what would you tell him that a young person can really gain insight from just before we say goodbye?
Okay, I think what I would say is dreams are not just dreams. Dreams can be transformed with the right way of thinking and the right techniques. You can get to where you really want to be.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for being with me today and sharing that academic journey and the journey of your career. I'm so excited to see more academies like Umbrella Academy beginning to disrupt the education system and helping young people find their way towards career empowerment, which I think for me is always the ultimate, is knowing that there's not just one way to get to a successful career. There are so many different ways and what works for you. And a big shout out to Tony Buzan for his incredible mind maps. It's an incredible strategy.
Yeah.
Big shout out.
Thank you. And thank you for having me, Maria. I've really enjoyed this.
Such a pleasure. And that brings us right to the end of another incredible conversation. Today, we were speaking with Chris Cain, who is the CEO of Umbrella Academy. You can look below the video and find all the details on the Academy and where you can reach out to them. Thank you for watching, and we will see you at our next Let's Talk Careers with Crispy.